there's the distinct form of a U-boat floating in the sea.
I sure do.
Hornell activates the action station's alarm, and the flying boat turns towards the enemy with 4 depth charges at the ready. Below, spotters in the German U-boat 1225 see the incoming aircraft and sound the alarm. Oberleutnant Thursday Ernst Sauerberg doesn't waste a second. The submarine turns and evasive maneuvers as twin 20mm cannons and a single 37mm flak cannon are turned towards the Catalina. The Catalina is rocked by 37mm flak. The plane's already shuddering under hits on the fuselage.
Cole, radio the base.
Orders the radio operator, Sidney Cole, to tell the base their location and situation. But before Cole has a chance to send the first message, a flak shell punctures the radio compartment. Cole groans and puts pressure on his wound, but doesn't report it. Instead, he pushes through the pane and keys the transmission. Little does he know that the radio equipment has been damaged by the German fire. Hornell dives towards the target, unaware that none of their transmissions are being sent. As they get closer, 20mm cannons join the fray, and tracers zip all around. The impacts get ever more frequent, punching holes in the aircraft's thin skin. The crew feel a violent shake, and are horrified to see pieces of the right wing being torn off. Flak bursts by the right engine, and it starts shaking violently. Hornell fights with the aircraft as it starts to drift off course, the mounting damage making it ever harder to steer. At the nose of the aircraft, the front gunner opens fire at the U-boat with his twin 303 Brownings. Bullets rain around Sauerberg. The Catalina's fire zeroes in on the conning tower as they get closer. Sauerberg's men are struck, and the guns go silent. But the incoming fire is too accurate. The Germans can't move as the Catalina's machine guns rip into the conning tower. But then, one of the Catalina's guns jams. The U-boat commander, hearing the strike slow, seizes the opportunity. The crew jump into position, and they open fire on the incoming Catalina. Hornell's blood runs cold as he sees once more a wall of tracers coming up at them. The Catalina is hit again with German fire ripping through the wings and fuselage. A glow comes from above, and Hornell looks up to see the damaged engine with flames gushing out of its cowling.
Starboard engine on fire. Shutting it down.
The second pilot shuts off the engine, but it doesn't stop the fuel leak. The pool of fire grows as the plane barrels towards the enemy submarine. Sauerberg is staring at a rapidly approaching ball of fire and orders evasive maneuvers. Above, Hornell is fully committed. Seeing the submarine turn left, he makes an adjustment at the last possible moment. And then he releases the depth charges. Below, Sauerberg watches the Catalina roar overhead as it drops its payload. God in me. The depth charges splash perfectly around the submarine.
It's ahead! It's ahead!
The aircraft shakes even more violently. Hornell looks up at the flaming engine spinning in the wind. He sees it shake its own mounts apart. The rivets and bolts come undone. The fuel and parts of the engine rip away from the wing. Hornell knows they're not going to make it home.
We're going down! Brace yourselves, man!
The men all hold on, except Cole, who frantically signals SOS messages as Hornell prepares to land. The sea below is rough. They've no other choice. Hornell turns his Catalina into the wind and prepares for landing. The float's lower, and the remaining engine is brought to idle. The waves only appear to get bigger as the plane gets closer to the surface.
Brace for impact!
Cole keeps keying SOS until the last possible moment, when he stops and braces for impact. The Catalina hits the first wave, but there's a strong headwind. The force bounces the airplane and it surges 150 feet back up into the air. Hornell wrestles with the controls, and in a split second, he aligns the Catalina for a second impact. They slam into the next wave, and the plane once again launches, reaching 50 feet before plunging back down towards the water. bursts through multiple waves before finally coming to a rest.
Get out!
Cornell urges on his men as he knows the Catalina can explode at any second. Flight engineer Donald Scott inflates a dinghy out of the left blister while fellow engineer Fernand Laurent inflates one from the right.
You won't get on board! I'll push it!
Cornell and some of the men jump into the freezing cold water to push the dinghy away. Cole bundles onto the dinghy and makes sure to secure the survival rations as the men start pushing. Then he remembers the radio.
Wait, the radio!
Cornell barely has time to understand what Cole has just said before Cole starts swimming back towards the Catalina.
What are you doing? We need the radio. They won't find us. Don't. It's too late.
Cornell is right. The men watch painfully as the Catalina is engulfed in flames and sinks under the waves. They begin helping one another onto the dinghy. The inside of the dinghy is already beginning to flood as the men try to board. Cornell uses a helmet to throw water overboard, but then there's a cry.
You're missing someone.
Cornell's filled with dread and immediately gets to the edge and counts the heads. There's only 7. There's meant to be 8.
It's Laurent.
Fighting down panic, Cornell scours the rolling waves for his missing man. They see nothing as the dinghy rises and falls in the heavy waves. They catch a glimpse of a second dinghy. It's also cresting a wave in the distance.
There he is.
They push furiously through the swell, rushing to catch up with their friend. The men on the dinghy direct as they see their friend also paddling towards them. Then they crest another wave and see Laurent's dinghy empty.
Go faster.
They redouble their efforts and reach Laurent, who's managed to struggle back onto his dinghy. The relief of having 2 dinghies is palpable, and 2 of the crew move to get onto Laurent's dinghy. But then, Laurent's dinghy explodes and drops the men into the ice-cold seawater. They all start to pile onto the remaining dinghy, but they can't fit. Cornell volunteers to stay in the freezing water with 2 more men.
Hang on. We sent those distress calls. Rescue will be here soon.
But he doesn't know that none of them were sent. For 3 hours, Cornell organizes a rotation, swapping who waits in the water, hoping to delay hypothermia. Cornell assigns himself to stay in the freezing water the longest, but it's unbearable. His strength is fading.
We have to figure out how to get everyone on board. Look, there!
An aircraft is spotted in the sky. It's another Catalina.
Get the flare gun!
The flare fires off into the sky, lingering in the air for a minute before falling into the sea. But the Catalina keeps on its path.
Another!
They send out a second flare, and yet again, the aircraft doesn't react.
Come on! Come on! Another!
A third flare is shot into the air. Seconds drag on. And finally,
They saw
the
us!
Catalina turns towards them.
We have survivors adrift, 63 degrees north, 0 degrees, 30 minutes west. Unable to land due to bad weather. We need a boat.
Over 100 miles away in the Shetland Islands, rescue boat HSL 2507 is deployed. The Catalina stays circling over the stranded men, and they signal in Morse code. High-speed launch on the way, help coming. And sometimes later it signals, U-boat killed. The men cheer. They might just make it out of this. Every wave is torture, and they're having trouble holding on. A wave lifts up their dinghy and throws the entire crew overboard. Cornell emerges from the water disoriented. The dinghy's getting pushed by the wind, and his men lay scattered around him. He clings to the lifeboat, counting heads.
Everyone's here?
They struggle to turn it over in heavy waves, and one by one, they help each other climb aboard and rebuild their barely stable setup. Water starts to fill the dinghy, and without the bucket and their strength fading, the small dinghy floats lower and lower, partially submerging some of the men in the freezing sea. The situation is desperate. Cornell's vision starts to blur. The men huddle in search of any warmth. Laurent starts to go delirious.
Laurent? Stay away. Please. Laurent!
Cornell and his men try to talk with him to keep him focused. But it's no use. It's gone. The men are devastated. Cornell makes a difficult decision to push Laurent's body overboard. Up above, the Catalina's running out of fuel. They start waving their hands and they see a big bomber turn towards them. It drops something from its belly. The men watch. It's a wooden boat. But the wind is strong and the boat gets carried away, flying off until it disappears from sight behind a wave. They bob up and down the waves and see it floating 500 yards away.
Let's swim. We can make it. No! It's too...
Despite being completely blind from the salt water and having no idea where the boat is, Cornell drags himself towards the water. The men swim after him, reaching out, grabbing his arms, trying to hold him back. Cornell pleads, but his men know it's no use, and they watch their lifeboat float away. A spotlight appears over the waves, illuminating the men. The rescue boat has finally arrived.
Contact. We found them.
After 21 long hours, the survivors of the Catalina are pulled from the sea. Laying on the dinghy, Cornell looks up, staring through his blurred eyes at the scene of his men being lifted out of the water. A sense of accomplishment washes over him, and with the last of his strength, he musters the smallest of smiles. His eyes close, never to open again. The sailors on the rescue boat attempt to revive him for 4 hours, but it's no use. Thanks to Cornell, 5 survivors would all make a full recovery and survive the war. David Ernest Cornell was posthumously awarded the Victoria Cross, and it was received by his wife. Of his late commander, second pilot Denomi later stated, "Outstanding about Flight Lieutenant Cornell was his marvelous ability in flying such a badly damaged aircraft, especially in the face of strong enemy fire. His courage and bravery throughout marked him as a great man. Words cannot do justice to the fine job he's done."
Your souls. What's your absolute devil of a job? Have you heard when an American destroyer had a fist fight with the ALBO crew? Watch the story and see the whole thing.
It's April 12th, 1945. At 2:30 p.m., 9 Mitsubishi G4M Betty bombers and their escort of A6M0 fighters soar over the East China Sea. In the lead bomber, Lieutenant Saburo Dohi puts on his oxygen mask and lies back on his makeshift cot. Breathing deeply, his mind is focused on one thing: the new secret weapon held in the bowels of the Betty. A weapon the Japanese hope will change the course of the war. Radio operator Lieutenant Zenji Sugano taps Saburo on the shoulder. His face is solemn.
We've made it.
American ships have been spotted below. A pair of destroyers and smaller vessels. The attack is on. Flak opens up on the Betty, and the crew scramble to their positions. Everyone knows, if they haven't been spotted on radar already, their position will surely be reported now. It's only a matter of minutes until superior Allied air power arrives. Saburo approaches the trapdoor in the bomber. The trapdoor has come to be known by the pilots as the Devil's Gate, but Saburo is undeterred.
Betty, let's go. Thank you for everything.
For a moment, there's a calm exchange of understanding and mutual respect between the two men. Sagano salutes Saburo, and Saburo smiles at his comrade. It's time. Taking a deep breath, Saburo passes through the Devil's Gate and down a small ladder, and he descends into his fate. The weapon that Saburo will pilot is suspended high over the sea, in the bomber's modified bomb bay. He feels the tug of the wind buffeting him as he eases himself down to the familiar surroundings of the cramped cockpit and controls. He takes a deep breath and tries to get his bearings. Through the narrow gap of the Betty's partially open bomb bay doors, he can see a slither of the unfolding destroyer, the ALBO. The crew fights desperately as gunfire rains through the sky, turning every weapon they have to the incoming Japanese planes as 3 Zeros soar towards the ship. 1 Zero is destroyed, and another is driven off. But the third barrels on. Encouraged by their success, the ALBO's crew manages to score hit after hit on the remaining plane, but the determined Zero can't be taken out. It slams into the destroyer's starboard side. The bomb it's carrying penetrates the deck and detonates. Above the chaos, Saburo has made his final preparations and taps out a Morse code message that he's ready to launch. His heart pounding. Saburo waits for his contraption to be dropped from the Betty and for the hurtling dive to begin. But a minute passes and nothing happens. Cold fear begins to pull in Saburo's stomach. He's suspended helplessly over enemy fire. If the Betty goes much more distance, he'll lose track of his target. Back on board the bomber, the aircraft commander shouts to radio operator Lieutenant Zenji Sugano. The explosive release bolt has misfired, and Sugano must manually jettison the rocket bomb. Sugano closes his eyes, unable to bring himself to watch as he releases the weapon. With no warning, Saburo plunges downward through the sky. Despite it feeling like the floor has dropped from underneath him, Saburo desperately follows his training. He activates a dial on the dashboard and shifts his thumb over to a button on the joystick and presses down. He's just activated a top secret piece of new technology capable of gliding in incredible speed. An overpowering force stronger than anything he's found before takes hold and he's thrown into the back of his seat. A deafening, unnatural roar drowns out everything. The battle cry of the Thunder Gods has been sounded.
Nitzana.
Just 8 months before the mission of April 12, 1945, on a hot, humid evening, a group of inexperienced naval cadets fresh out of flight school are assembled at Takao Airfield, Taiwan. The cadets sit on tatami mats awaiting their commander, barely able to contain their excitement. All they know is that they've been summoned for a top-secret undertaking, and if they display the required attributes, they will be given control of a single weapon more capable than anything before it. Amongst the group are cadets Saburo Dohi and Hideo Suzuki, friends and classmates from flight training. Group Commander Captain Yunsaku Takahashi enters the room. His face is solemn.
If you are married, if you are the only surviving male here for your family, or if you have only one parent alive, raise your hand.
Hands go up around the room as Takashi watches gravely.
You, man with your hands raised, leave the room.
The stunned silence is followed by looks of confusion and disappointment. Men exit quietly, leaving an ominous crowd of empty seats. Takashi begins the briefing. He reveals to the cadets that despite the Japanese propaganda, the war is not going well. But this weapon could be the answer. It's capable of taking out an American aircraft carrier in one shot. The men are in disbelief. This is a game changer. But Takahashi isn't finished. There's a catch.
Operating this weapon is a war mission. You will die.
Saburo Doki and Hideo Suzuki nod to each other resolutely, as they are determined to serve Japan at whatever the cost. Takashi stresses to the men the urgency of the project, but also assures them that there will be no shame in backing out, giving them 3 days to consider. Despite the stark requirements of the mission, a team of cadets sign up. They are now the 721st Naval Air Group, and they will soon become known as the Thunder Gods. Hideo and Saburo soon begin training with their fellow cadets, and finally discover what the miracle weapon they will be learning to operate is. Named the Oka, meaning cherry blossom in Japanese, the title alludes to the sacrificial pilots as falling cherry blossom flowers, diving to a glorious death. The Oka is constructed around a 2,600-pound warhead. During training, the pilots train using unpowered glider versions of the Oka. Despite the brutality of the assignment, Hideo Suzuki is in high spirits. His friend Saburo wishes him luck on the airfield, and Hideo eagerly climbs aboard the Betty bomber with his comrades. Once the bomber is cruising high in the air, Hideo settles down into the Oka K-1 training glider for his first flight. It's now that a rush of adrenaline passes through him, but he fights to remain calm. He confirms that he is ready by announcing into the mouthpiece, all good. Hideo also taps out in Morse code an abbreviation of his oral message. The Betty pilot is not to drop the K-1 until he has confirmed Hideo's message, and Hideo himself has issued a reply. In the cramped cabin of the glider, Hideo waits an eternity for a reply. There's only silence from the Betty's pilot. With no clue of what to do next, Hideo frantically starts to repeat his original Morse code message, but before he can finish, there's a deafening bang as the explosive charge detonates prematurely and releases the Oka from the bomber into a roller coaster dive. The aircraft plunges through the air, immediately pulling hard Gs. Hideo grapples with the joystick as the G-force increases and threatens to overwhelm him. He can feel the weight acting harder and harder on him, and his eyes slowly start to close. With a jolt, he wrestles the little plane back into even flight, and the pressure slowly subsides. Gaining confidence, he sights the airfield, circling it twice before lining up for the final approach. If you enjoyed this video, we'd really appreciate your subscription. Thank you. Now, only 3 feet over the airfield, Hideo is inches away from success. Having been warned not to force the craft down, but to let it bleed energy until he feels the skid bite, Hideo grits his teeth and follows his stream. Finally touching down on the ground and skidding along the sandy field. But it will not be an easy landing, as creeps closer, the pilots walk to a humble hill known as Tornado Mountain. The normally festive atmosphere is muted by the effects of over 7 years of war, as the pilgrims trudge exhaustedly up the mountain. The icy ocean breeze meets the bright rays of the sun as it bursts over the horizon. The men take a moment to watch the dawn from the heights of Tornado Mountain. Ajiguchi, a pilot from Thunderbirds that day, stated, "We drank a couple of sake and shouted, 'Banzai! Banzai! Banzai!' We all knew it would be our final first sunrise." In April 1945, Saburo Dohi and Hideo Suzuki are becoming impatient and tense. Twice now they have waved off their fellow pilots on 2 previous Thunderbirds missions. These task forces have been annihilated by Allied forces, but Saburo and Hideo are no less eager to jump into action. Finally, the day comes when Saburo is assigned to the 3rd Thunderbirds operation, although Hideo is again left in reserve. At the airbase, Hideo and Saburo say their final goodbye. sights the small aircraft 1.5 miles out, spinning low over the water at terrific speed. The crew had never seen anything so fast and so small. There's no time for them to react. Saburo and his Oka hurtle towards the vessel, ripping through the sky. Takes a deep breath, and slowly closes his eyes. Takes himself back to the beautiful little door until the tiny resurrected. The 2,600-pound warhead of Saburo's Oka has collided with the side of the ship. Having activated the manual launch of Saburo's Oka, Zenji Sugano has been watching every step of Saburo's journey and seen the tremendous blast. Saburo's Oka obliterates the vessel's midsection, buckling the keel, severing all power, lines, and communications. Aboard the ship, water pours in from all angles, and those below deck don't even have a chance to register what's hit them. The Oka has done its job. The captain of the MKLP gives orders to abandon the ship as it breaks in two. The bow and stern drift apart before slipping beneath the waves. Dozens of men are trapped inside. As the stunned survivors clustered in the churning waters, the crew of the nearby destroyer, USS Jeffers, has sighted another Oka zipping towards them. The Jeffers' guns open up on Saburo's squadron, but the Oka streaks on relentlessly, its pilots unfazed. An explosion rocks the ship. The decks are smashed, but the ship hasn't sunk, and just 50 yards, an anti-aircraft shell had struck the Oka. The Oka and its pilot are destroyed before they can even hit the target. Not so lucky as Saburo and its glorious death in the hull of the MKLP. The initial strike by the kamikaze, the Oka, and the subsequent strafing of this attack kills 83 and wounds 35. The operation is later deemed the most successful use of the Oka in the war. Saburo would never know that his hit of the MKLP would be the one and only ship accounted to be sunk by an Oka. section was mounted at the rocket's tip, complete with its explosive charge and fuses. 3 fuses were fitted into the warhead. A contact and inertial fuse were mounted right under the nose cap. A second inertial fuse was mounted at the base of the charge. A single fuse could activate the explosive charge. The warhead was loaded with 2,000 pounds of amatol, a highly explosive material commonly used during World War II. Amatol consisted of 60% TNT and 40% ammonium nitrate. Amatol was less powerful but cheaper and more heat tolerant than pure TNT. The equipment section housed the guidance and control systems. Inside this section were 2 electrically powered gyroscopes, which enabled autonomous control during flight. The horizontal gyroscope detected deviations in the rocket's pitch, while the vertical monitored yaw and roll. An analog computer connected to gyros and control surfaces. Batteries to power the gyroscope's computer and other systems, and a main electric distribution board, which could